This is Karen Munns for MCO 3346, Advertising and Copywriting. I chose to do my final ad campaign over The Rambler, and the title of my campaign is The Rambler, A Journey of 100 Years. So my thought process on this was The Rambler has been around for a really long time. The university has only been here for a little over 128 years, I think. And The Rambler has been here for 100 of those years. So almost since there was a university, The Rambler has been here to report on it. And going through that thought concept, I thought, okay, well, The Rambler is a pretty established organization. And so going off of that, The Rambler is fairly experienced at covering the news of Westland, and they've had a lot of practice at it, and they've just been here for pretty much everything. So in my head, I kind of thought, okay, well, saying that something's been around for 100 years is all well and good, but it's not as good as taking them through each of those decades, because 10 decades is a really long time. So my first concept for that, I actually thought up during Dr. Colley's public relations thing, whenever we were supposed to come up with a campaign for the Rambler's 100-year anniversary. And so the way I came up with this, I kind of thought, what would be the best way to illustrate the Rambler is turning 100 this year? So kind of thinking of it more like a birthday than just a celebration. And so I created a couple of kiosks, and these were just my 3 favorite ones. The first one says, "Get groovy with the Rambler. Look out for a new edition of the Rambler on May 2nd." And then it has all of our social media stuff on the bottom. That's pretty common. That's kind of the template, I guess, I use for this. I have the 100-year logo, and then kind of like a catchphrase from the time. So the 50s, I used shake, rattle, and roll with the Rambler. And then Westland's top news stories for over 100 years. And so that to me was kind of pointing out, the Rambler has been giving people news for 100 years. And so they're pretty credible if they've been here for 100 years and they haven't really messed anything up too bad. So that's kind of where my concept with that came. I really liked the whole idea of following the Rambler through the decades, because it really let you know how experienced everybody is. And if they've been covering the news since 1917, they probably know what they're doing. The next ad concept I have is Facebook ads. And I chose to do Facebook first and foremost because most college kids that I know are on Facebook just to keep up with their high school friends, and so they're most likely going to see it there. And so my idea here was to focus on specific events throughout history. So the first one, I have a photograph of the silhouette of John Bender from the Breakfast Club, and it says, "Before the Breakfast Club got detention, the Rambler was reporting on Texas Westland. Pick up the newest edition May 2nd and check us out on atherambler.org." So my main goal for these was to either encourage people to pick up the print edition of the Rambler, or to drive people to our website to read content and generate views, things like that, get more readership. And so a lot of my goals throughout this was, my driving idea was to try to get people to pick up more print editions of the Rambler, but also to gain more social media followers, to encourage traffic to our website, and that kind of thing. So those were my 3 main goals, was to increase readership of the print edition, increase readership of the online version, and increase social media interaction. So some of that would be on our end, and it wouldn't necessarily be an ad. It would be whoever is in charge of social media answering comments, trying to get more interaction, and not just dumping content onto a website. So the next idea for an ad I kind of have been doing myself already since I am a Rambler staffer. I would put up on Snapchat a selfie of me with the paper, and I normally put, hey, it's distribution day, just because I thought at the time that it rhymed, and I thought it was kind of funny. But that's some free advertising right there, because pretty much every person that I'm friends with at Westland has a Snapchat and uses it. Pretty much we use that to communicate with each other, because we don't really bother with phone numbers. So So sending a snap and like adding it to your story can create awareness, let people know that like you care about the paper, that kind of thing. And also lets people know that you're on it and that you wrote about it, and then your friends will want to read it, and then hopefully your friends will tell their friends about it. So that's kind of like generating word of mouth on your own. So like it's kind of word of mouth, but not really. The second idea I had was going off the way that Shady used to use the Rambler Snapchat whenever she was still here. She would put up just like pictures of the events that she was at with like just a little caption like, hey, da-da-da is happening at the mall, come check it out. And then whenever the story was up about it, she could have posted, hey, the story about whatever happened on the mall is up on the Rambler website, check it out. And now they even have the swipe up thing on Snapchat where you can just put the link and then it's like swipe up to read, and then it makes it where it takes those people straight to your website, and you don't even have to really be concerned about them not going because they would have to like type in the link themselves. This is just a simple swipe up. It's really easy. So then there's like not a whole lot of barrier between going from Snapchat to the content. And then I have a picture of a stand that we put the newspapers in, and I thought this would be a good idea because if you put up pictures of the stands as they're being filled, then people figure out like, hey, it's distribution day because they're putting up all these Snapchats with the stands being filled. And then it also lets people know where they can pick up the paper. And then my idea for this was like you could take a picture of like your papers in the stands and then kind of write a tease for like one of the bigger stories in it, or maybe not one of the bigger stories, maybe one of the stories that a staffer wrote. And so like you could say like, hey, check out this football story about recruitment and what the football team is looking forward to doing next fall, that kind of thing. And then you would have different like little blurbs about each story in the paper for each stand, and you would keep that on your story, and then people could just click through it, and then you're getting pretty much free advertising just from Snapchat. Also, you can sponsor Snapchat ads so that it pops up in stories of people that like aren't friends with you. So like whenever you're clicking through, it'll just pop up in between two other stories. And that would be an easy way to get more people involved. The next ad type I decided to do was Twitter. I picked a lot of social media for this ad campaign because it's not that expensive. Most people that are on campus at Texas Wesleyan are on some sort of social media, which I think is really important to note, just because being on social media, you're bombarded with a lot of content, and so you're trying to kind of figure out where can I stand out and how can I make this better. And so one of the ways that I thought that the Rambler could use Twitter would also be to tease stories. So for this one, I used the Jeff Coat story, and I just tweeted it real quick, put the link up, and then there's a button where you can promote your tweets. So it'll show up in people's feeds that don't necessarily follow you, but that Twitter thinks would be interested in what you have to post. And it lets you try to pick your target market and like the optimal time of day to post. It tries to let you pick the same like geographic area as the area that you're in. It's a little different because Wesleyan is not just like one area, so it'd be a little bit bigger than Wesleyan, but a lot of people from Wesleyan live in the area too, so that's always fine. But I thought that would be a good way to try to get more views on certain stories that like you think are going to do really well and people are going to be interested in. And then the next slide I have is why I did not do a TV ad. So when I was really thinking through this, I tried to think of something to do for kind of each area, and I didn't do a TV ad or a newspaper ad because it didn't really make sense to me to pay a whole lot of money to get the Rambler advertised on TV whenever our target audience would be so much smaller than the audience that the television channel would be reaching. And so you'd only be hitting like a small amount of the people that you're actually targeting, and then a bunch of people that you're not targeting. So then like the whole idea of putting it on a television station didn't really make that much sense to me. And so I thought, well, you could put it on Ram TV. But then I kind of thought, well, that sounds like a lot of extra work for somebody to make a TV ad and put it up on Ram TV when most of the people that are watching Ram TV already know about the Rambler. So putting it out on Ram TV didn't make that much sense to me either. So that's why I didn't do a TV ad. And then I kind of didn't do a newspaper ad for the Rambler for the same reason, because like if you're putting an ad about the Rambler in like the Star Telegram, it's going to cost way more money. And then you're hitting like all of Fort Worth when really like you're only trying to target people that actually care about Wesleyan, because no one else is really going to care about reading about a university that they aren't affiliated with at all. So, and then I thought, well, I guess you could put one in the Rambler, but again, same thing, that doesn't really make sense. Why would you advertise for the Rambler in the Rambler? Same sort of thing. And we already have a thing on there that talks about our website and where to follow us on social media, so that didn't really seem to have a point to me. So that's why I didn't do a television ad or radio or a newspaper ad. I did do a radio ad though, and I'm gonna call it an audio ad because it's not really to be played on the radio. So if any of y'all went to the football games, you'll probably remember that they did the whole sponsored first down thing. And so it was like, this first down is brought to you by Raising Cane's, is the one that I remember the most from just standing on the sidelines. But I'm thinking the Rambler could do something like that and just say like, the first down is brought to you by the Rambler. The Rambler has provided excellent, accurate coverage of Texas Wesleyan for over 100 years. Check out therambler.org for more information. Go Rams. Same kind of idea. And then the other idea I had was to be played at basketball games, because you have a little bit more time and there's generally more timeouts in a basketball game than we had first downs this year. Maybe when we get better, we'll have more. But the ad that I wrote for basketball games reads, "The Rambler has been reporting the trials and successes of the Rams for over 100 years. To catch up on all things Wesleyan, check out therambler.org, pick up the new print edition, or follow them on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the Rambler TWU." So that kind of hits all three things that I was focusing on pretty quickly. It's just a little blurb. It can be read during a 30-second timeout. It can be read during a 1-minute timeout. And then you also kind of have a captive audience. Most people there have an investment in Texas Wesleyan already, so they're definitely in your target market. And it's just an easy way to get more people. So when I was writing this ad campaign, I really tried to think about like what the most effective ways the Rambler could get more readers, get more followers. And so definitely flyers and kiosks are more helpful to get followers, but also trying to interact with people on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, like people that aren't following you, is an easy way to get more followers. So like a lot of times you'll see someone follow you that you might not know on Instagram, and so then you click on their page just to kind of see what they're all about. So like same sort of thing for the Rambler. You could go to someone's profile page and just click follow, and do that for like a lot of people that look like they go to Wesleyan, or maybe it's people that you know go to Wesleyan and they just don't follow you. And then that's an easy way to try to get people to follow you back. Also, just from being on the Rambler, I realized that we don't necessarily have just the hugest budget ever to spend on kiosks and things like that, but like you could spend $100 to print flyers and just don't make them time specific. So like where I have on here, look out for a new edition of the Rambler on May 2nd. Maybe you just say on Wednesday, and then the week of distribution day, maybe you could put them all out on Monday, and then it would just say on Wednesday. And then you would need somebody to go and like take them down, but you could just get a staffer to do it. So then the only cost really would be the cost of the flyers. And then since you didn't put a date on it, you're also not like losing money for the flyers that you didn't need to put out. You can save all the ones that you didn't use and use them for the next distribution day, because since it just says Wednesday, they're not time specific, so it doesn't really matter. The other things I tried to pick things that were like either free, like the Snapchat idea where like you have the staffers doing some of the Snapchatting, or pretty low cost. Like promoted tweets don't cost that much, sponsored Facebook posts don't cost very much, and you can kind of choose what area you want to be in. So if you have a larger budget one semester, you can pick like a larger amount of money to spend on Facebook ads, Twitter ads, Instagram, sponsored posts, that kind of thing. And it's just an easier way to decide how much money it is, because you're not really locked into like a contract. So that was my idea on how to advertise for the Rambler. I hope that y'all really like some of my ideas, and I would really like to know what y'all think. So I think I am going to do the participation response thing. So go look for this on The Buzz. Thanks, guys.